I stopped by a Walgreens to grab medicine. Saw my fiancée in the parking lot sitting in a guy's lap inside his car. When I tapped on the window, and she looked up with his hand still on her waist, the cold air hit me the moment I stepped out of Walgreens. My head felt heavy, my throat burned every time I swallowed, and all I wanted was to get home, take the medicine I had just bought, and collapse into bed. I wasn't even supposed to be out. I had pushed through work all day with a fever because the office wouldn't survive without someone who understood the quarterly reports. By the time evening rolled around, my body was sending me clear signals that I was pushing my luck. So Walgreens, quick checkout, then home. That was the entire plan. The parking lot was half full, mostly people running in for late-night essentials. Streetlights hummed above the rows of cars. I was fumbling with the keys when a familiar movement caught the corner of my eye. Not a face, not a silhouette, just a jacket. A beige coat draped over someone's shoulder inside a dark-colored sedan. I didn't think anything of it at first. Plenty of beige coats in this city. But then the car interior light flicked on for a moment when the guy in the driver's seat adjusted himself. And there it was. The same coat I had helped hang in our hallway only 3 hours earlier. Same narrow belt. Same stitching near the collar where Tara always complained one thread poked out. My brain didn't even create a full thought. It was more like a pulse. A recognition. A pattern that my eyes sent straight into my chest. I stepped closer. Slowly at first, because I wanted to be wrong. The sedan was parked 2 rows away, near the far corner by the pharmacy drive-through window. Dark, tinted windows in the back. Clear enough in the front to see shapes. As I approached, the shapes resolved. 2 people. One sitting on the other's lap. I stopped breathing for a moment. The person straddling the guy wasn't facing me. She was leaning forward, hair falling over her shoulder, one knee pressed against the seat, the other foot braced against the car floor. Her hands were on his shoulders. The guy's hands were on her waist. They were laughing at something. Her head moved in a way I had seen when she told me stories about her day. Animated, excited, trying to impress someone. The coat slipped down her back when she shifted. Beige. Belt hanging. Same stitching. Recognizable a mile away. And then the way she lifted her head. I knew that profile. I felt cold in a way my fever couldn't explain. I walked straight toward the car. Not fast. Not slow. Just a steady movement because my body didn't know how else to react. I had planned to drive home with cold medicine, but apparently the universe had a different agenda lined up in the Walgreens parking lot. When I reached the driver's side window, I didn't think. I didn't prepare speeches. I didn't even wonder what exactly I might see the moment she turned around. My knuckles tapped the glass. She froze. The guy froze. Her head turned first. Slowly, like someone waking up from a dream. Her eyes met mine. Her face went pale in a way I had never seen before. The guy still had his hands on her waist, and he didn't even pull away at first. He was more confused than guilty. I saw the moment reality hit her. She jerked back, sliding off his lap, so quickly she nearly fell between the seats. She grabbed the coat, pulled it around herself as if that made anything better. The guy lifted his hands in the air, palms up, as if he were caught in the wrong room during a police raid. Tara opened the door so quickly it bounced back against her leg. She stumbled out, breathless, voice uneven. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't ask how much I saw. She didn't ask if I was okay. She went straight into the kind of panic only someone who knows they are cornered can produce. Behind her, the guy leaned forward so he could see me better. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't angry. He looked confused. More confused than she was panicked. He said something that knocked the ground out from under my feet, even harder than the sight of her sitting on his lap. He said he thought we were broken up. Not unsure. Not questioning. Certain. Tara spun on him like she had been stabbed. She tried to quiet him, reaching out, grabbing his sleeve, telling him to stop. But the damage was done. The words had landed. The confusion on his face wasn't rehearsed, and nothing about his posture suggested a staged excuse. My fever started to feel irrelevant. My confusion was sharp enough to cut through it. I asked him to repeat what he said. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just directly, because my brain couldn't process it without hearing it again. He repeated it. Same tone. Same certainty. And then he said she had told him we were on a break. A break I had apparently not been informed of. The Walgreens logo glowed above us like some kind of stage light while she stood there, caught between 2 different versions of the truth and watching both of them collapse simultaneously. She grabbed my arm. She tried to pull me aside. She said we should talk privately. She kept telling me it wasn't what it looked like. Those words came out of her mouth so quickly she didn't seem to realize how absurd they sounded with the guy still sitting behind her in the car, still trying to process the situation for himself. He stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, gym clothes, like he had just left a workout. He walked around the car and stood on the opposite side of the open door, looking between us. He asked her if she had lied. She didn't answer him. She focused entirely on me, grabbing my coat, begging me to listen, saying we needed to leave the parking lot before people made assumptions. People were already watching. A couple by the cart slowed down. A woman loading her trunk paused. A Walgreens employee pushing a cart rack turned away immediately, pretending not to see anything. Tara kept tugging my arm. But the guy wasn't letting her leave either. He wasn't grabbing her. He wasn't shouting. He simply refused to let her walk away without explaining why she had said what she said. He asked her if she had lied about being broken up. He asked if she had lied about me cheating on her. He asked if she had lied about the two of them being exclusive. That last question hit her like a shot to the ribs. She turned to him with a look I had never seen from her, desperation mixed with anger. She demanded that he go home. She said this wasn't his business anymore. But the more she talked, the more obvious it became that she had constructed two different stories depending on who she needed attention from. She had told him I was out of the picture. She had told me she was tired after work and needed space some evenings to decompress. She had told him we were sorting out the final details of ending things. She had told me we were planning the engagement dinner in the spring. All of it collapsed in a Walgreens parking lot under the dim glow of overhead lamps while I stood there, throat burning from fever and disbelief. She tried to take my keys. She kept saying she needed to talk to me first, before anything else happened. She wanted control of the narrative again. But the problem was simple. Everyone in the scene now had enough pieces to see a pattern. The guy didn't yell. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just stared at her with a kind of raw disappointment I wasn't expecting from someone who had just learned he wasn't her only romantic priority. He said he didn't know she was engaged. That sentence hung in the air longer than anything else. He looked at her hand. The ring wasn't on it. She had left it at home. She had told me earlier that day her fingers were swollen and she didn't want to stretch the band. I accepted the explanation because I had no reason not to. She had removed the ring so another man wouldn't ask questions. And now both versions of her story had collided. She begged me again to talk inside the car or go somewhere else. She didn't want anyone watching. She didn't want him to be part of the conversation. She didn't want the stranger loading groceries to overhear bits of it. She wanted the scene erased. But reality doesn't erase that easily. I didn't go anywhere with her. She stood in the cold, arms wrapped around the beige coat, eyes wide and unfocused, knowing she was running out of room to steer the story back into her control. The part ended with her staring at me in a way that said she understood something important. Whatever happened next was not in her hands anymore. Because I had seen the truth without needing to search through messages, receipts, apps, or clues. I had walked straight into it in a parking lot, on a night I only wanted flu medicine. And she couldn't undo that. I drove home without turning on the radio. My head throbbed from fever, shock, and the leftover adrenaline pumping through my system. The cold medicine bag sat in the passenger seat untouched. I kept replaying the parking lot in my mind, but every time I tried to make sense of it, the images only got more tangled. Her coat slipping off her shoulder, his hands on her waist, her insistence that it wasn't what it looked like, his confusion, his certainty that she had said we were done. None of it matched the life I had left behind that morning when I kissed her goodbye before work. The moment I stepped through the front door, the house felt unfamiliar. It wasn't the furniture or the lighting. It was the sudden awareness that every detail inside this space, the framed photos, the mugs, the jackets hanging on hooks, might not mean what I thought they meant yesterday. I placed the medicine bag on the counter, still not ready to open it. The silence pressed against me as if the walls were listening for what I would do next. I sat on the couch for maybe 3 minutes before her car pulled up outside. The engine cut. The car door slammed. Footsteps hurried up the walkway. The front door opened without hesitation, which told me she didn't think anything was over yet. She walked in already mid-sentence, still trying to explain, still trying to take back the narration before I had time to anchor myself. She said she knew how it looked. She said she shouldn't have been in his car. She said she should have told me she was struggling with things. She said she needed clarity. She said she didn't mean to lie. She said she didn't know how to say certain things without hurting me. The sentences spilled out of her like water from a cracked pipe. Fast, inconsistent, and out of control. None of it landed. I didn't interrupt her. I wanted to see where her version of the story would go. I wanted her genuine version, not the one she had tried to construct in the parking lot. She paced the living room, coat still wrapped around her, hair falling over her shoulders the same way it had when she straddled him. I tried not to let that image intrude, but it kept showing up no matter how hard I pushed it away. She said she had known the guy, Cole, for a few months. She said they met through a mutual friend. She said they talked, sometimes when she needed to vent. She said nothing had actually happened yet, not physically. She said she was confused, overwhelmed, lost, unsure of herself. Every line was a slight pivot from the last one, as if she was searching for the version I might accept. Every time she paused, She stared at me with an expression that begged for a specific emotional reaction. Sympathy, forgiveness, anything predictable. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. One vibration, then another, then a third. I reached for it because I needed something to break the spiral of her voice. The messages were from my friend, Mason. Call me right now. Dude, where are you? I need to tell you something before she spins it. My pulse rose. I stepped away from her and walked into the kitchen. She followed, still talking, still insisting that nothing happened in the car, still insisting that she had been meaning to talk to me, still insisting that the timing had just gone wrong. I lifted a hand to stop her because the phone was still buzzing in my palm. I called Mason back. He picked up immediately. He didn't start with a greeting. He didn't ask if I was okay. He said he had seen her car at the apartment building on Willow Street earlier in the week, the same building where Cole lived. He said he didn't want to assume anything at the time, but after hearing about the Walgreens incident, because news travels fast when people witness a public implosion, he realized I needed the full picture. He told me she had visited that building more than once. He had seen her there on different days, always around late afternoon, when I thought she was at the gym or grabbing a coffee on her way home. He apologized for not saying something sooner, but he hadn't wanted to plant suspicion without proof. Tonight changed that. I thanked him. Calmly. Mechanically. I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at the reality forming piece by piece in front of me. When I turned around, she was standing in the doorway, frozen. She had heard everything. Her face changed instantly. She said Mason was lying. She said he was jealous. She said he didn't like her. She said he had always tried to cause distance between us. She said he misinterpreted everything. She said I shouldn't listen to him. Her voice cracked when she reached the end of her excuses. I asked her directly if she had been in that building. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, but enough to answer the question on its own. After the pause, she said she might have been there once or twice. She said it was only to talk. She said she never planned for anything romantic to happen. She said she was confused. I walked past her into the living room again. She followed like a shadow. She reached for my arm, but I stepped away. She tried to apologize, but each apology felt like a thread pulled from a sweater. The more she tugged, the more the truth unraveled. I told her to sit. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I didn't ask aggressive questions. I simply told her to sit because I needed structure. She obeyed immediately, which told me she felt the situation slipping in a direction she couldn't control. Then came the moment that shifted the entire tone of the night. A knock at the door. A sharp, too familiar knock. She froze. Her shoulders tensed. Her face drained of color. She didn't move. I opened the door. Cole stood on the porch. He looked as uncomfortable as a person could possibly look. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair was still messy from her pulling on it in the car. His breathing was shallow. He didn't seem angry, just blindsided by the entire situation. He asked to talk to her. Not aggressively. Not possessively. Just with a need for clarity. He said she had texted him after leaving Walgreens. She had asked him not to speak to me again. She had asked him to stay away. She had told him something had exploded, but she would fix it. But he didn't trust the tone of her messages. They seemed too rehearsed, too desperate, too contradictory. So he came. And now he stood on my doorstep, looking at her as if she had taken his understanding of the past few weeks and twisted it beyond his recognition. She tried to get him to leave. She tried to tell him it wasn't the right time. She tried to tell him she and I needed space. But he didn't leave. He stepped inside. Not forcefully, just far enough so he wasn't speaking into the hallway like a stranger begging for attention. He stood near the entryway, arms crossed, eyes locked on her. She looked like she was about to crumble. He asked her again why she told him we were over. She said she needed someone to talk to. She said she had felt lonely. She said she didn't know what she wanted. He asked her why she told him she was working on rebuilding her life after the breakup. She said she didn't remember saying that. He asked her why she had come to his apartment wearing the same coat she had been wearing tonight. She said she only needed space. He asked her why she had kissed him before leaving last week. She had no answer to that. The house felt too small for 3 people, especially when 2 of them were demanding clarity from someone who had built different stories for each of them. Her eyes darted between us like someone trying to keep multiple plates spinning at once while knowing the collapse was inevitable. I stood by the wall, leaning against it, trying to keep myself steady. My fever had returned. My head pounded with each pulse. But everything happening in my living room pulled me forward like a gravity field I couldn't escape. She begged him to leave again. He refused until he got a straight answer. That was the breaking point. She snapped. She went from panicked to furious. She said he was making everything worse. She said he didn't understand her. She said he should have known she was confused. She said he shouldn't have shown up here without warning. She said he should respect boundaries. He asked her which boundaries she meant, the ones she invented for me, or the ones she invented for him. The moment stretched into silence. A long, aching silence that made the truth impossible to hide. She realized then that whatever control she had over the situation in the car had evaporated completely. Both men she had manipulated stood together, seeing the full picture for the first time. She sank onto the arm of the couch, head in her hands. But the night wasn't done with her yet. Because Cole looked at me, took a deep breath, and said there was something else I needed to know. Cole stood in my living room as if he had walked into a fire he didn't know was burning this hot. He kept glancing between me and her, jaw tight, trying to decide how much to reveal. Tara sat on the arm of the couch, hands clasped, legs shaking. She looked like someone waiting for a verdict she already knew wasn't going her way. Cole inhaled, steadying himself. He said she hadn't just told him we were on a break. She had painted an entire story around that lie. A story that had parts even he found suspicious, though he ignored the doubts at the time because he liked her and wanted to believe her. He said she told him I had emotionally checked out months ago. She told him I worked late because I didn't want to be around her. She told him I had said I needed space from the relationship. She told him I was cold and distant. She told him we slept in separate rooms once a week. None of it was true. We lived normally. Not perfect, but stable. Dinner together most nights. Conversations about upcoming plans. Weekend grocery trips. Ordinary couple life. There was no emotional chasm, no silent resentment, no half-done breakup. Yet she had crafted that version to justify stepping into Cole's life. He looked at me with a mixture of frustration and pity, the kind men only give when they discover they've been pulled into someone else's dishonesty. He said he wanted me to know because he hated realizing he had been part of something that hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I nodded. Calm. Too calm. I had reached the stage where emotions were exhausted, and only clarity remained. But then Cole added something that shifted the entire atmosphere. He said she had told her coworkers a third story. Not mine. Not his. A separate one. He said a mutual acquaintance from her workplace had heard she was single again and had mentioned it in front of him at a bar 2 weeks ago. When the coworker realized Cole was the guy she had been seeing, he joked that she moved fast, considering she had just ended things with her fiancé. Fiancé, meaning me. I stared at her. She didn't deny it right away. Instead, she blinked rapidly, like someone hoping the world would reset if she didn't move. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, drained, almost defeated. She said she hadn't meant for it to spread. She had vented to one coworker. She had been upset. She hadn't expected it to snowball. Cole kept going because he wasn't finished. He said the coworker had assumed the breakup happened because I was too controlling, and she hadn't corrected that. She had let people believe I was the unreasonable one. She had let that version travel through hallways and break rooms while she quietly entertained the attention Cole gave her. I looked at her again. She didn't have the energy to twist this version. The weight of the contradictions pushed her into silence. She had 3 stories running at the same time, one for each world she occupied, and all 3 were collapsing. She muttered that she had felt misunderstood, that she didn't know how to express what she was feeling, that she needed comfort and support and couldn't find it, that she had panicked during a rough patch. It wasn't even a real explanation, just scattered phrases searching for footing. Cole exhaled, stepped back, and said he was leaving. He apologized to me again. He didn't apologize to her. He didn't even look at her. He walked out the door quietly, the way a man leaves a space he no longer wants any part of. When the door closed, it was just the 2 of us. She finally broke. Not with dramatic tears or shouting, but with a quiet collapse. She sank onto the couch, shoulders falling. She asked me to sit. She insisted she could explain everything if I just listened. I didn't sit. I told her to start talking. And she did, in a rambling, shaky monologue that swung from excuses to half-truths. She said she had been stressed. She said she felt overlooked at work. She said she felt insecure about the engagement. She said she didn't think I appreciated her enough. She said flirting with Cole made her feel wanted. She said she didn't plan for anything to escalate. She said she thought she could manage the lines without crossing them. But she had crossed them. Clearly. Repeatedly. I asked her about the ring. She admitted she had been taking it off before going to see him, so he wouldn't ask questions. She also admitted she had gone to his place more times than she initially claimed. She said she hadn't meant for it to feel like cheating. She had convinced herself we were drifting apart, even though nothing about our life reflected that narrative. I stood there listening to the broken logic, the rearranged details, the desperate attempts to soften what had happened. My fever pulsed behind my eyes, but adrenaline kept me upright. She tried to shift the topic. She said we could move past this if we tried. She said couples recovered from worse. She said she was willing to cut Cole off completely. She said she would delete his number. She said she would attend therapy. She said everything was salvageable. Her voice softened into something pleading. And then the night found its next twist. My phone buzzed again. Another message. From a coworker. It said, "Is everything okay? Heard something about you and Tara." Didn't want to believe it until I checked. I frowned. I typed back, asking what they had heard. The response came almost immediately. "Just rumors that you two split," and she moved on. People mentioned a tall guy she was seeing. Someone said they saw her with him near the Willow complex. I stared at the screen. She had never told me people at my job also knew the breakup lie. Somehow the rumor had crossed workplaces. Someone knew someone. Stories circulated. Whispers traveled. Suddenly, I remembered the odd looks I had gotten last week in the break room. At the time, I chalked it up to stress or poor sleep. But now, seeing the message in front of me, the pieces shifted into place. She had been telling people the breakup had already happened. She had been laying groundwork for a future without me while still living in my house, eating dinner with me, talking about engagement plans, and saying she loved me. I showed her the message. She stared at it, speechless. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but no words formed. She looked like someone who had been caught in a lie so large she didn't know where to even begin untangling it. I asked her how long she had been telling people we were done. She admitted it had been at least a month. A month. While we still shared a bed. While she texted me about weekend plans. While she asked what kind of flowers she wanted for the wedding arch. While she sat across from me at dinner, laughing about something she saw online. She tried to defend herself by saying she didn't want to hurt people with the details until she figured out what she wanted. She said it all came from confusion, not malice. She insisted she was overwhelmed and scared of commitment and unsure how to navigate her emotions. I asked her why she agreed to an engagement if she felt so unsure. She didn't have an answer. She tried to shift the blame toward stress, timing, fear, emotional instability. Nothing sounded convincing. Nothing matched actions. Nothing matched the version of life she had been presenting to me. The air in the room grew tight. Not loud. Not violent. Just heavy with the moment both people realized the foundation they stood on wasn't real. She stood, took a step forward, and reached for my hand. I stepped back. The gesture broke her posture. Her shoulders dropped. Her expression folded inward. She whispered something, but her voice was so faint I couldn't understand it. And then, as if the universe wanted the scene punctuated with one final jolt, there was a knock on the door. A steady, deliberate knock. She jerked her head up. I turned toward the entryway. Through the window, I saw the silhouette. A woman from her workplace. Someone she never expected to show up. Someone who had heard a very different story and had come with information that would turn the situation inside out. I opened the door expecting awkward small talk, maybe a confused expression and a hesitant apology for showing up unannounced. Instead, the woman standing on my porch looked like she had sprinted straight from her car, with urgency sharp enough to cut glass. Her coat was half-zipped, her hair wind-tangled, breath short. Her eyes flicked past me and landed on Tara inside the living room. Her expression tightened. She didn't ask if she could come in. She stepped inside on instinct, as if she had forced herself to follow through before nerves talked her out of it. Her name was Kendra, someone I vaguely recognized from photos Tara had shown me once, a workplace friend who attended team dinners and birthday lunches. They weren't close, but they interacted enough that seeing her here felt off immediately. Tara's reaction told me everything. She shot up from the couch, so fast the cushions shifted. Her whole body straightened with a defensive jolt, almost like she'd been caught hoarding something under her jacket. Kendra didn't waste time. She said she had just gotten off a group video call with coworkers. She said someone on the call mentioned seeing what happened in the Walgreens parking lot earlier that night. The rumor spread quickly, faster than she expected. Someone recognized Tara's coat. Someone else recognized Cole from the description. Someone else mentioned my name. Someone on the call said, "She told us she broke up with him weeks ago." Then someone else said, "But she told me he dumped her." Then another said, "She said they were figuring out living arrangements." Then another said, "Wait, I thought she said he was the one cheating?" The contradictions clashed in real time on that call until the entire group realized the timelines she had given each of them didn't match. The stories didn't align. None of the details formed a coherent picture. And now the rumor that she had been seen in a guy's lap at Walgreens lit the powder keg. That's why Kendra came. She said she didn't want to participate in behind-the-back gossip. She said it felt wrong to talk about me without giving me a chance to hear what had been circulating. She said she knew something was off weeks ago, but she assumed Tara was handling personal problems privately. She never imagined the stories were built on lies. She took a breath and lowered her voice, almost apologetically, before dropping the part that pushed the night into its final descent. She said Tara had told people I was emotionally volatile, not abusive, not dangerous, but unstable enough to justify hiding her new situation with Cole. She said Tara implied I was unpredictable. She said Tara had told them she feared I would spiral if I knew she was moving on. She said some coworkers believe she had left me months ago for her own safety. My hands went cold. I turned to Tara. Her face had drained of color in a way I had never seen before. Panic wasn't even the right word. It was dread mixed with the realization that her narratives had unraveled so far they were now damaging me directly. She whispered that she didn't remember saying half of what was being repeated. She said it was exaggeration. She said she had vented while upset. She said she had never meant for it to spread. She said she didn't expect people to repeat her words. Kendra cut in, sharply, but not cruelly. She told her that people were already talking about filing HR concerns because they thought she was in an unsafe situation. She said someone had asked if they should approach me privately about anger issues, since Tara had described me as emotionally unpredictable. None of this was muted gossip anymore. These were whispers that could affect my career if they reached the wrong manager or got framed in the wrong context. Tara tried to defend herself again. Her voice trembled. She insisted she never intended to harm my reputation. She said she felt overwhelmed and needed sympathy. She said she didn't know how to reverse the impression she had created. Kendra exhaled and stepped back. She looked at me with genuine regret. She said she came because she didn't want my name dragged through office speculation without any chance to defend myself. She said she figured I deserved clarity before rumors twisted further. She apologized once more, then left. The moment the door closed, the silence inside the house grew thick enough to feel. Tara sank to the floor, back against the couch, hands covering her face. Her breathing was erratic, chest rising and falling in sharp patterns. She wasn't acting. She wasn't manipulating in that moment. She was watching her entire web collapse. But the consequences weren't done. The next morning, while I slept on the couch and she lay awake in the bedroom, the fallout hit my phone like a stream of aftershocks. A message from a coworker asking if I needed support. Another asking if the rumors were true. Another asking if I was okay. Another saying HR was circulating guidance on handling situations of emotional distress within the office. Every message nodded into the next until I realized the truth. Whatever she had said, it had spread far further than her workplace. Lines crossed. Stories blended. People assumed things that never happened. By midday, she knew. The damage wasn't contained. She asked if we could meet for lunch and talk. I didn't reply. I needed space to understand the scope of what she had done. That afternoon, she showed up at my workplace. Unannounced. She walked in pale, shaking, eyes red, asking the receptionist if she could speak to me privately. Before they could stop her, she wandered farther inside. Panicked, frantic, irrationally fixated on controlling the narrative. She told whoever would listen that she needed to fix a misunderstanding. Her voice was loud enough for half the floor to hear. Coworkers stared. Managers stepped out of offices. People whispered. She caused a scene. A big one. It wasn't violent. It wasn't aggressive. It was desperate. Her words tumbled too fast, contradicting themselves, spilling panic into an environment that relied on structure and professionalism. A supervisor had to gently escort her outside because she wouldn't calm down. She tried to explain to them that rumors were getting twisted and that she needed to clear things up before anyone misunderstood further. But her frantic behavior only made the situation worse. A manager later told me HR had been alerted, not because of me, but because she walked in crying and rambling about lies and rumors and misunderstandings. They worried she might be having a breakdown. By evening, she was blowing up my phone. Calls, messages, voice notes, all variations of the same plea. We needed to talk. We needed to fix this. She couldn't lose everything. But the damage wasn't reversible. Not for her. And not for us. Later that night, Cole sent me screenshots he found on his phone. Messages she had sent him when she thought I was becoming a burden. Words she never said to me directly. One message said she felt I was holding her back. Another said she didn't want a future with someone she saw as too responsible and dull. Another said she didn't want to settle. He didn't send them to rub anything in. He said he wanted me to understand the full landscape because he regretted being part of it. He said he had already blocked her. When I read the screenshots, something in me settled. Not angrily, not loudly, just decisively. I sent them to her mother. Her mother had been texting all day accusing me of being cold and uncommunicative. She said I needed to step up and support her daughter during an emotional episode. She hinted that I had driven Tara to this. So I forwarded the screenshots. 5 minutes later, her mother called me, apologizing. Her voice shook. She said she had no idea. She said she didn't recognize the girl in those messages. She said she was worried for her daughter, not angry at me anymore. The narrative reached its full correction. By the end of the week, Tara's world collapsed in a way I never would have wished on her, even after everything. Her workplace placed her on leave after she snapped at a coworker who brought up the Walgreens rumor. She moved in with a cousin after falling behind on rent in the apartment she secretly rented for future independence. Cole cut all contact. Co-workers distanced themselves. Her friend group fractured. As for me, I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smear her name. I didn't seek vengeance. I moved out. Quietly. Canceled the venue bookings. Deleted our joint planning folders. Rebuilt routines. Rebuilt sanity. Rebuilt identity. The engagement ended the moment she sat in another man's lap in that car. The rest was just the fallout catching up. And the final truth sat with a kind of calm clarity. Trust doesn't break in a single moment. It breaks in the months leading up to it, and reveals itself the moment you least expect to see it.